Nation, welcome to the SI Sooners podcast. You know what day it is today? It's National Signing Day. You know what didn't happen today? Oh, you didn't sign anybody. They signed nothing. They signed nada, zip zilch. Lincoln Riley told us today. I'm not even sure why we had a press conference, but I'm glad that he did. It's always good to get some hear from the head coach. But he basically told us today that Oklahoma didn't even send out any national letters of intent, Ryan.
Wild. Obviously, I haven't been covering National Signing Day as long as you have, John, but the day in February, I remember when I was a kid, this was the big day that everyone got hyped for on sports radio. It was monitoring the fax machines, all that stuff. Today, it wasn't even a whimper, John. It was just nothing. I know the early signing day is, the primary signing day with all the fanfare and stuff, but to not have a single person coming in, a single signee today, pretty wild. I don't think I could have ever thought of this 5-10 years ago.
Yeah, I looked on Sooner Sports, man. They didn't have anything. They had the press conferences, the Dennis Simmons, the Alex Grinch, and the Lincoln Riley videos, but that's it. It's like they literally didn't sign anybody. They didn't try to sign anybody today. It was weird. It was like the beach party that you go to every year has been moved indoors. Or I likened it in the story that I wrote to Mardi Gras. Mardi Gras. Everybody's having a good time. Everybody's a little bit buzzed. Some of us are sideways about National Signing Day, right? Well, today it was just like you go down there and there's nobody on the street. Bourbon Street is empty, man. It was weird. Ryan Chapman, he's in Norman. I'm John Hoover, and I'm in Tulsa. Thank you guys for listening to the SI Sooners podcast. Appreciate that. And thanks again for watching my YouTube channel. SI Sooners is, as you know, a Fan Nation affiliate, part of the Sports Illustrated Network, SI Sooners, allsooners.com. And I'll tell you what, because of you guys, the reader, the listener, the viewer, business is good. We set a record for traffic in January that just blew my hair back. And, of course, the bosses loved it. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank you guys. And if I might add, if you want to be like our friends at Trade Pros and advertise with us at SI Sooners or on the SI Sooners podcast, where your advertisement will be seen or heard, folks, by literally millions of people every month, released in December and January. I'm not making that up. Just drop me an email, allsoonersi@gmail.com. We'll get you hooked up. Ryan, let's get into this signing class that Lincoln Riley brought in today. Oh, you know what? Never mind. Well, thanks for listening to the SI Sooners podcast, everybody. That's our show for now. Just kidding. The world of college football has just changed, man. It's wild. Lincoln Riley talked about it today. I asked him about, just 2 or 3 years ago, this was a huge celebration. I mentioned the Mardi Gras earlier of college football. It was weird today to get on there and say, hey, Lincoln, how's your class? Because usually it's, we signed a great class. Everybody's great. We're going to have national championships and Heismans, and how could anybody not be happy? And today it was just kind of, we had a defensive staff meeting today, and I gave Dennis Simmons a promotion today, and these guys here, they're working hard to come back from injuries. It was a very workmanlike day for the Sooner coaching staff, I think, Ryan.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest conversation point almost was the transfer portal guys, because that's the only additions or subtractions to the team that we've had since the Cotton Bowl, since that early signing day where all 16 members of what's going to make up this freshman class signed in. So it's very bizarre, and it's just, I didn't know what to make of it, John, because even you talk about last year and the year before that, sure, the bulk of the class is done on that early signing day, but there's always 1 or 2 guys that Oklahoma's chasing down, trying to bring in, maybe a late signing day flip, something like that. Shout out Tidy Armin. But today, there was none of that. It was the Sooners like we knew in December. They signed their 16 guys. They swung the bat at a few others in the SI-99. Once they missed, they said, all right, we've got X number of scholarships. Time to dip into the portal and fill the needs. We've covered that. Oklahoma did a great job of addressing their needs in the portal. But like you said, John, it just makes for an unprecedented signing day. But, this 2020 leaking into 2021 season, unprecedented seems to be our day-to-day operation.
Yeah, you're right. They did a great job in the portal, I thought, addressing the needs, raiding Tennessee. Lincoln talked about that today and how two of those guys, Key Lawrence and Wanye Morris, were guys that they had recruited previously. He talked about how, the running back from Tennessee, Eric Gray, he wasn't a guy that they recruited previously. Mr. Tennessee football 2 years, 3 years in a row, whatever it was. I don't know how he's not on your radar, but he's the Tennessee guys. They had different stories. Two of them came kind of together, but then they get Gray. And they talked about Robert Conja. We're going to have stories, by the way, on all these guys later on in the week at SI allsooners.com. But he talked about Robert Conja, the Arizona transfer, and he talked about Micah Bowens, the Penn State quarterback transfer. Everybody likes these guys. They're going to, at some point, contribute. Also, something that came up today I thought was interesting was I mentioned earlier about the couple of guys coming back from injury, Caleb Kelly and Justin Harrington. Kelly, of course, is trying to get back for his 6th year at OU, and if he wants to, I guess he could come back next year for a 7th year. But Alex Grinch said he's looking real good. He's able to do a lot of stuff. He said we'll get him healthy at some point. Thought that was interesting. And then Harrington, think about it. This is a kid who came in last year from JC. He was supposed to be a day one starter, basically, but he got hurt on like the first day of practice, so hurt his knee. So he rehabs, red shirts, whatever, and Grinch said today, he looks great. Not a lot of guys have been more engaged than him, and come to find out, they think he actually injured that knee, Ryan, in high school. What'd you make of Alex Grinch's comments today on Justin Harrington?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting, specifically that it was I don't know if lingering's the correct word, but it's an injury the staff was aware of, and they just weren't maybe as aware of how bad it was until they got them under the great eyes of the trainers there at Oklahoma. So that makes some sense. But yeah, he's a guy that, he was the person in the secondary we heard all coming up to summer ball, everything. This is going to be the guy. He's going to come in. He's going to take somebody's job, all that stuff. And then one practice in, like you said, John, and all of that's a wash. So this is a secondary that, though they've got a lot of guys who have some snaps, particularly at the safety position, 2 very seasoned guys in Pat Fields and Delarian Turner-Yell, but if anyone's going to come in and anyone's going to contribute, I feel like that's a unit where Alex Grinch, more than any other, welcomes the competition. He wants as many guys as possible to be out there getting reps. So I don't understand why that would be a bad thing at all. I think that Sooner fans should be very excited about him getting healthy because he was that guy before he got hurt. Imagine what he could be now. And as we'll talk to later, there's a spot or two now extra that's open that we didn't think was going to be vacated at the end of the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, and I thought another interesting part of the press conference today was Lincoln talking about how the transfer portal, has changed the way they approach recruiting. My story was about this used to be a day that coaches would, stay up all night and get up on, or, get the coffee going at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. or whatever. And now it's like we did all our work in December. We got some transfer portal guys. Today is just a work day. He talked about the readiness and the maturity and the experience factor of getting those guys from Tennessee, from Arizona, from Penn State, although Micah Bowens didn't actually play yet at Penn State, getting those guys in the fold who have played college football before. It's more of a known quantity. And that's kind of, in a couple of positions at least, that's kind of what this team needs, Ryan.
Yeah, and it's such a weird thing. We talked about it last week that the way this panned out is perfect for the timeline that the Sooners are on. Oklahoma, the expectation is not to make it to the college football playoff, John. It's to win their first college football playoff game and challenge for a national championship in 2021. Now, that all starts, as we know, in the spring, in the summer, and in the fall on the practice fields of guys feeling that there's challengers from their own position group. They have to play their best in practice to get on the field on Saturday before they even play an opponent. So by dipping so heavily into the transfer portal, that means the Sooners are getting guys that know what it means to take the field on Saturdays, know what it means to play elite college football. So that's just going to immediately infuse competition into those rooms all over again because because like Lincoln Riley said, high school guys can get, his specific examples, they can get wound up and wrapped up in the facilities, things like that. Not so much the transfer portal, because everyone has a story, why they went to school A to start with, why they left school A. Everyone has a mission, and I think that it fits perfectly with what this team is trying to accomplish this year. So what better year to raid Tennessee in the portal and come out with a lot of experienced guys across the spectrum.
Exactly. Another element of the transfer portal that he talked about today was tampering. Tampering? What? No, that's not good. People aren't cheating in recruiting, are they? He expressly said we'd be like sticking our heads in the sand if we said it wasn't happening. It's happening. So I think what you look for is when a kid announces he's entering the transfer portal, or a school maybe announces that the kid is in the portal, or the word leaks out that the portal has been populated by this player's name, like the next day he's already signed a letter, right? That's when you got to look into some tampering. Ryan, I thought that was fairly entertaining the way he approached that question and basically said, yes, people are tampering across, and tampering of course means, hey, player XYZ, why don't you put your name in the transfer portal, come to Tennessee, or come to Georgia, or come to Arizona State, or come to Colorado, whatever. He said it's happening. How surprised were you about that?
It doesn't surprise me really at all, John. I did momentarily black out and think I was in an NBA press conference, though, with all the tampering mentioning. That was maybe the most surprising thing. But like we've seen this, the transfer portal has kind of become the new junior college. There are certain schools, like right now, and I'm not saying that SMU is one of those schools that's tampering, but SMU's done a really great job of recognizing there are a lot of great high-level players that come out of the state of Texas. Not all of them go on to do perfect things at their first stop in college. Why don't we bring those guys back into the fold, give them a second chance, and they're reinvigorated, and SMU's been really successful. We know what Bill Snyder did at Kansas State with the community colleges and junior colleges. Like, it's going to be something that as more and more programs see the portal as a viable option to rebuild or maybe get ahead. Look, John, it's college football. Anytime there's an opportunity to get ahead, there's going to be someone putting some cash in McDonald's bag, dropping it along the way. Like, it's just going to happen. So it was not shocking that Lincoln Riley and everyone was just like, yeah, this is going on.
I'm loving it. Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, there was one piece of news that did come out today that kind of flew in the face of the big news that came out yesterday. We'll tell you what that is next. Hey, listen up. Winter's here, okay? But you know the season's in Oklahoma. Cold one day, hot the next. That's a lot of work for your heating and air unit. But the guys at Trade Pros, they got you covered. Sign up for one of their no-hassle service plans. You can go pro, become elite, or the best deal's the MVC, most valuable customer. They'll come out twice a year and tune up your AC and your furnace. You get priority scheduling, and you get additional discounts. Just call Caleb or Carrie at Trade Pros, 405-249-7290, or go to TradeProsOKC.com or look them up on Facebook. Trade Pros. That's one word, Trade Pros Heat and Air. Follow SI Sooners on Twitter at all_Sooners. Find Ryan at Radios Ryan, and I'm at John E. Hoover. Our website is allsooners.com. We are a Fan Nation affiliate. Part of the Sports Illustrated Network. All of our content, as you know, is free. No memberships, no subscriptions, no credit cards. Just click and enjoy. The video version of this podcast you can find on my YouTube channel. That's John Hoover Media. Remember to subscribe to my other channel right there. This one's going away. You're going to have to subscribe to that. I'm not like doing this just because it's fun. This one is going away at some point. I don't know when. So just subscribe to that other one. Posted a bunch of press conference videos up there today. You'll get over there and see all those. Okay, Ryan, big news yesterday. Bookie Radley-Hiles is in the transfer portal. We're not breaking anything here. We're talking about yesterday's news. That's what we do on podcasts. Both Rivals and 24/7 Sports have, I guess, someone who has access to the names that are in the transfer portal. That's cool. We're trying to get there. Bookie's name popped up yesterday. News broke. Apparently he wants to explore his transfer options. That's cool. Probably that turned into one of the biggest stories in terms of fan interest and traffic and things like that we've had at allsooners.com. You can read about it on our website. You can go to any, like a dozen of Facebook groups, I guess Bookie groups, and read the comments. That kid is one of the most polarizing figures that I have ever seen in an OU football uniform. People either love him or they hate him, or they're at least willing to tolerate his boneheaded plays, or they absolutely despise him. It's one or the other. But Ryan, Lincoln came out today, interestingly, and said, in fact, I think it was Garen Emig said, are you okay to talk about Bookie? And he's like, yeah, sure. He started to talk, and Garen was like, well, here's my question. And his answer was, I hope he doesn't leave. He basically said, I'm a fan of Bookie. I hope he stays. We'll see where that goes. Just so you'll know, entering your name in the transfer portal doesn't automatically remove you from the roster or cost you a scholarship or anything. You basically just get to kick the tires on other schools. But Ryan, Lincoln has made it clear, I think, in the past, kind of his stance, I guess you could say, is that if you enter your name in the transfer portal, that means you're done at Oklahoma. But that's apparently not the case this time with Bookie.
Yeah, and this is a guy that Lincoln Riley has defended publicly on more than one occasion now. So I think that it's very clear that what goes on behind the scenes, this has been the message from all the players that you've seen on Twitter. This has been the message from the coaching staff from day one. What Bookie brings to the program behind closed doors can't be measured. The way that he has an impact, it sounds like, with working with those younger guys and bringing them along. We've all heard the recruiting stories of any recruits that come into Norman, John. They absolutely love Bookie. He's a guy that people gravitate towards. So it's one of those things that you can kind of understand. There are boneheaded plays on the field, sure, but you can see not only that, Bookie played well other than those for the most part this season. Then when you compare that with what he does behind the scenes, like, I can see why the coaches have been willing to put up with those boneheaded plays. And I think that kind of fits the narrative of where this defense is going, that with more competition, more guys that can slot in and not make those decisions, the idea is hopefully it pushes Bookie to continue to improve and not have to do that. But I just think that Lincoln's right. This is a season where if you can get an experienced guy, a 3-year starter, to come back and help contribute to this team with the expectations we already talked about, of course you would want that guy back, even if maybe he's not the best teammate. But then it sounds like Bookie is a great teammate behind closed doors. It sounds like a no-brainer as to why OU wants him to come back for one more season. So it wasn't totally shocking, but this is not the first time we've heard this from Riley.
Yeah, I think you put it correctly. Being able to put up with his boneheaded plays. You take the good with the bad with Bookie. There's a lot of layers, in my opinion, with a guy like Bookie Radley-Hiles. And what I mean by that is, like you said, you mentioned all the aspects of his behind-the-scenes work, things that people never see. I'll tell you this from behind the scenes, in the past 2 years, not necessarily this year because everything's been on video, but the past 2 years, when he comes in for interviews, again, this is not the biggest deal in the world, of course, but I'm just giving you our perspective from the media. He's one of the best guys there is. He's kind. He's what would you say? He's reflective. He's respectful. He says yes, sir, and no, sir, and he's friendly, and he smiles. Now, that doesn't take away a 15-yard penalty against Iowa State and Ames, but it just goes to show you that there's a lot of layers to this kid. There's a lot to him. And my take on Bookie and Lincoln is this, basically. OU players, I think, yesterday, today, last night, they got on social media and they expressed their love for this kid. They expressed their respect, all that. Social media was chiming today with Bookie's teammates. What's Lincoln supposed to do? What's he supposed to say after all that? Is he supposed to say he's glad he's gone, good riddance, too bad all you guys miss him because he ain't coming back? I mean, Lincoln's pretty smart, and he knows the best way to recruit his own players, the best way to let his own players know he's got their back is to say, man, I hope Bookie comes back. Now, I'm not saying that Lincoln doesn't believe that. I think he's made it pretty clear how he feels personally about Bookie, and he's behind the scenes, and he loves the kid. He loves everything that he brings to the team other than the 15-yard penalties and stuff. But I don't think he's coming back, Ryan. Lincoln left the door open. If you want to see the full press conference or the full quotes, just go to allsooners.com. He did leave the door open, but I think Bookie's feeling underappreciated, maybe by the fan base. I don't know. He probably saw Trey Norwood kind of take over the position last year, late in the season. Maybe Trey Norwood kind of put it on display how that position's supposed to be played, right? And I think he saw what a monster that Justin Harrington can be or is becoming, and maybe some of those other guys that are trying to find a spot in that defensive backfield. And I think he realized, crap, I got benched by Trey Norwood. I'm probably not going to play much behind these other dudes. Because he was playing, Ryan. He was a 3-year starter. He loved his teammates, all that stuff. Or what do I know, Ryan? Maybe he's just homesick for Cali.
I don't think you're far off, John. And plus, it's another one of those things that the book was out on Bookie in the Big 12 Conference. You saw this every single game down the back stretch of the season. Every time he's on the field, quarterbacks are throwing the ball that way, not necessarily because it's an easy advantage to take it to, an easy matchup to take advantage of, but you're just hoping that he holds on for a pass interference or starts jawing after the play because Big 12 officials were looking for it. It seemed like Bookie couldn't nod his head in any general direction or point even before the Big 12 said, the referees said, we know you, we've reffed you for 3 years, 15 yards, that's a personal foul. So maybe simply just picking up shop and moving on to a different conference that doesn't have that same year-in scouting report, all that stuff, and maybe moving closer to home, he can harness that energy and not have so many penalties, things like that. I think that it also shouldn't be overlooked that TJ Pledger, by all accounts, one of his best buds in recruiting, he's no longer on this roster. He's headed to Utah. So for Bookie, this might just be the right time. It's that time where we all think the NCAA is going to grant these immediate eligibility waivers for everyone transferring around. What better time than now to hit the reset button, start fresh? You got 2 more years of eligibility left. Just go ahead, use that one-time transfer, and maybe find a different fit where there's just not so much baggage on both sides.
I wonder if it's, going back to our previous segment, I wonder if it could be players tampering. You make a good point about Pledger. They were boys back in junior high and even younger, I think, 10, 12 years old in the Valley in California. They attended the same, I think, sophomore year, maybe they played together. I can't remember. But senior year, they decide, okay, we're going to go. Bookie, I think, played sophomore and junior year in Vegas. They decide senior year, we're going to go to IMG. And then they decide we're going to go to Oklahoma. And now you're seeing kind of another decision. They're both in the transfer portal. I wonder if it's Pledger that could be, and I wonder if that's technically tampering. If Pledger's calling his best friend from childhood saying, bro, come play with me. Come to Utah. We got it going on here. We're in the Pac-12. We got some great road trips. We got some great opponents coming. Is that tampering? I don't know. We need to get an NCAA clarification on that. Up next on the SI Sooners podcast, somebody going to get a big raise. Hey, are you a business owner looking to get your product out there to the masses? Let's say you run a hotel in Norman or a car dealership in Oklahoma City or a restaurant in Edmond, or maybe you're a small online business who creates and sells OU merchandise and you just want Sooner Nation to come sample your wares. Well, then consider advertising in this space right here on the SI Sooners podcast. SI Sooners reaches thousands of readers, viewers, and listeners literally every day. And the SI Sooners podcast is the ideal place to find your next customer. To advertise, send an email to allsoonersi@gmail.com or DM us on Twitter at all_Sooners. Final segment of the SI Sooners podcast. Ryan, what did you make of Dennis Simmons' promotion today? It was a little odd. It was a little cool, I guess. Lincoln clearly meant to mention it off the top, but I guess it slipped his mind. Then after his part of the presser ends, we all push stop on our videos and stop on our audio recorder, push back from the desk a little bit, grab a second cup of coffee as we wait for Alex Grinch, and then boom, Lincoln's back on our screens. And he's talking about Dennis Simmons. He basically gave it up to Dennis Simmons. What'd you make of the coach's promotion today?
Yeah, I mean, it's well earned. His track record speaks for himself. As I was putting it together, when you just start listing off his run of wide receivers, John, you talk dating back to he got a year of Sterling Shepard, then into D.D. Westbrook, the first Blitnikoff Award winner in Oklahoma history, moving on to Marquise Brown and CeeDee Lamb, who were there at the same time. Now, just this plethora of, every time you bump shoulders with somebody in that wide receiver room, it's a 5-star guy that's been brought in by Riley and Simmons. I think it just makes a ton of sense. And this is something we've seen all across the country. You're adding passing game coordinators, running game coordinators, all this extra stuff. I feel like it just makes a lot of sense. I don't know. I would have to be Lincoln Riley or Dennis Simmons to know if the day-to-day is going to change, but this is the struggle with when you've assembled that many heavy hitters on one staff. You got to start handing out some new titles and a little bit of pay bump to keep everyone happy and there, because these are attractive candidates for any offensive coordinator job, head coaching jobs, the like, all around the country. So if you want to keep them at Oklahoma, John, you got to keep them happy, got to keep them paid, and you got to hand out a passing game coordinator. So it's well earned. I don't know if anyone on the staff, you're talking Gundy, Simmons, and Bedenbaugh are those three just absolutely massive heavy hitters who have the resume to get that kind of promotion. So it's well earned to him, and he just seems such like a great guy in the limited interaction I've had with him. So happy for him.
You mentioned Bedenbaugh. He's the co-offensive coordinator. Okay, that's his title as of right now. Two things about Dennis Simmons. One is he is Lincoln Riley took some heat last year for some of his play calling, game planning, whatever it was. And I actually asked him during the season, hey, are you in a situation where you might ever consider hiring an offensive coordinator to help you with the game plan? Because you take on the head coaching job, that changes the amount of hours that you have. Remember the story I had from Mike Leach, and Gus Malzahn said, yeah, don't do it. If you can avoid it, don't be a head coach and a play caller. They both said that. Mike Leach, his mentor. So maybe this is kind of a step in that direction. And then the other thing is Dennis Simmons and Lincoln Riley they go back to Texas Tech under Leach. They're kind of buds, kind of boys, kind of coming up together through the coaching ranks. Lincoln brought him in with Ruffin, of course, at East Carolina, and then Lincoln hires him, or Lincoln, recommends him, I'm sure, as offensive coordinator, recommended him to Bob Stoops. So they go back, and they're kind of tied together a little bit, but this isn't what that is. Ryan mentioned it. All the 5 stars, the guy he's absolutely earned this and probably more. And I don't know what his raise is going to be. We'll find out. But he's been killing it in recruiting. In addition to those three guys that you mentioned that he recruited, Marquise, Hollywood Brown, and D.D. and C.D. Love saying those guys' name back to back. He goes and brings in the 3 5-stars 2 years ago. Then last year he brought in Marvin Mims, he wasn't a 5-star, but he probably should have been. Now he's got an incoming receiver core that includes 2 SI-99 guys. I'll try English next time. Billy Bowman and Mario Williams, a former SI-99 guy, and Cody Jackson, who we talked about extensively today. And he brings in another guy, Caleb Williams' best friend, Jalil Farouk, who was in the SI-1000. And I wouldn't rule out Jalil Farouk being the best 3 or 4 years from now, the best of the 4 guys that they signed in this class. Dennis Simmons is what you might say he's operating at a high level right now. And I think when they announce the new contracts in June, yeah, he's going to get paid. I thought it was interesting too, Ryan, that Dennis was asked about his desire to be a head coach someday and what steps need to be taken for universities and other organizations to hire more black head coaches. And he said he definitely wants to be a head coach someday. He's not worried about it right now. He wants to be a receivers coach at OU, but he doesn't want to get a job because of the color of his skin. Found that very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it just kind of speaks to that drive that he's had coming up through Texas Tech, East Carolina, and here to Oklahoma. You don't become that high level of a recruiter and a coach, both in one, unless you just have that drive to be the best at whatever you're doing and this intense competitive spirit. So I would have been shocked, honestly, John, if he had said anything else, because who really wants to say that they got a job off of anything other than the merit of what their body of work has been? I just feel like that makes a ton of sense, and it was just a really powerful message from Simmons. And look, he's a guy that I expect to go on and do great things. The way that he recruits, he just connects with his players, things like that, and he can obviously coach the hell out of football. Like, let's just be honest, especially if you start bringing in Mark Andrews, Cal Katera, those guys. I know they're tight end H-backs, but they're also considered wide receivers at points in Lincoln Riley's system. Like, he's had his hands in all of the huge playmakers that have come out of Oklahoma since Lincoln Riley has been there, and I think it's well earned. And like you said, when that time comes around here a little bit further along in this offseason, he will be handsomely rewarded in the pocketbook area.
Absolutely. And another assistant coach that Lincoln talked about today was John Finley. We mentioned him previously on the podcast. New tight ends coach, played at OU with early 2010s. He said it's great. Lincoln said it's great to have him back. Said he's proven himself as a recruiter, as a position coach, and as an offensive mind, Ryan. And because of his stints at Missouri, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss were so short, I guess that answers the question we had about him, John, as a recruiter. We'll see. But at least Lincoln addressed that today in his opening comments. He wasn't even asked about it. At least he addressed John being a recruiter.
Yeah, for sure. And to a certain extent, I feel like you can kind of get an idea of John's ability to close and to pitch someone, because isn't that really what an interview is? You're pitching someone on why your skill set is best for this job. And now you mention all those names. Those are heavy hitter schools. So they're not just handing out a job to anyone just because you've played before or one connection you happen to have. Like, they want the entire package. So while we haven't seen an entire recruiting cycle out of Finley yet, I have to believe with the culture that Lincoln Riley has cultivated on this coaching staff, unless he believed that John Finley's not going to be a great recruiter, he wouldn't have given him the job. And even if you don't think that John Finley's up to whatever level you have in mind for him, again, he can fall back on a Cale Gundy, a Dennis Simmons, a Lincoln Riley. Those guys are just one office over if he needs any help at all with anything. So he's got great mentors there on top of that skill base that he already obviously possesses himself. I'm hard-pressed to be really worried about any hire that Lincoln Riley makes being a bad recruiter, because none of them have turned out that way yet.
As long as we're talking about making a pitch, I'm going to make a pitch here real quick on my series that just wrapped up today. It's National Signing Day, whether they sign anybody or not. And the series was on the top 20 what-ifs in OU recruiting history. The guys who came into National Signing Day with high hopes, and everybody had high hopes for them, and for one reason or another, it just didn't work out. So it wrapped up today. We hit number one. Guess who number one was? Yeah, that's right. It was Rhett Bomar. We all knew he was going to be number one. One of our voters actually didn't vote him number one, which kind of surprised me. I think he voted him fourth or something. But go to allsooners.com if you want to read the whole thing. I shot a video for each one, sitting right here with this little backdrop. So check that out. I'll say this. You guys either loved this series or you hated it. Most of you loved it. I got a lot of feedback saying, thank you for bringing back these memories. Thank you for reminding us what a great player he was. Thank you for reminding us all this good stuff. And a couple of you said, can we talk about current Sooners? Can we talk about guys who were undervalued? And to which I say, we already had a series on return on investment is what we called it. The recruits who came in like Sam Bradford, another quarterback who ranked number one on that list, came in with very few stars and became, All-Americans, Heisman Trophy winners. Really outperformed it. We've already run that series, so we got to go the other direction this time. Anyway, lots and lots and lots of comments on this one on the Facebook and everywhere else. Ryan, Sooners fall at Texas Tech on Big Monday. Kind of a heartbreaking loss there for OU, but it wasn't for a lack of trying. This team's really good. Let's just call it what it is. Since our last podcast, they took down Alabama at home in a very close game, despite being shorthanded. This time at Texas Tech, I think they were just a little too shorthanded.
Yeah, and I think that people are recognizing how good this team is, John. They rewarded them by vaulting, 15 spots a program record in the AP poll, all the way from 24-9. Like you said, though, John, missing Austin Reeves, missing Alondas Williams, I think you could just tell. That was defensive slugfest in Lubbock. And toward the end of the game, Davion Harmon, Elijah Harkless, those guys, I think their legs were just gone. It was a quick turnaround from a very physical, very intense Alabama game on Saturday to that big Monday game. And the Sooners, they did not embarrass themselves. I think, if anything, they cemented they're a top 15 team. The way that they just eliminated Max McClung from the equation totally, the way that they really contained Terrence Shannon for a long part of that game, all of that shorthanded, little rest, and having to do all the travel. That's one of those games, John, you just chalk that up to that's Big 12 grind. I don't know what team in the country would have won that game on that night. So nothing to be sad about, nothing to hang your head about. Another impressive performance. Did it go Oklahoma's way? No. But 2 hard-fought battles with Texas Tech, I wouldn't mind seeing them play 1 or 2 more times this year.
Yeah, and in all those bracketology, mock bracket type things that you're seeing, you're starting to see some momentum for Oklahoma as a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. That's how well they've been playing. We'll see if they can keep up this pace, or at least if they can get back on track this weekend. Listen to the SI Sooners podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts, or on your Amazon-enabled device. Just say, Alexa, please play the SI Sooners podcast. Those guys rock. Or go to our website, allsooners.com, click on the player, and listen on your phone, your tablet, or your computer. And don't forget, you can always watch the video version on my YouTube channel, John Hoover Media. For Ryan Chapman, I'm John Hoover. See you guys.